With the release of the new Pokémon Scarlet and Violet DLC, the Teal Mask, a variety of new Pokémon and moves were introduced to the games. All of the recent changes caused a shift in the viability of Pokémon and led me to join the SPL Draft League with many familiar faces from the Draft League community such as Envy, Shuckle King, Numb Nexus, and KyleAye MD. I was kicked from my last Pokemon Draft League due to unfortunate connectivity issues that were out of my control. But with my connection issues in the past, I'm looking to come back to draft with a vengeance from a job left unfinished, and I believe I have the team to do it. I started out in the draft as the 6th pick out of 14. This is a disadvantage because unlike the first and the last pick of the draft where you can actually pick 2 Pokemon at a time, I would have to find the perfect synergy for my team 1 pick at a time. I knew I had to plan to draft Pokemon that could fit in on any type of team for my first few picks and then look to fill the gaps as my draft progresses. With this in mind, I decided to take the best enabling support and synergy Pokemon in the Generation 9 metagame in Alolan Ninetales. Alolan is an Ice Fairy type Pokemon that got a huge buff in Generation 9 with the change from Hail to Snow. Snow now doubles the defense of Ice types and no longer damages Pokemon on the field. This greatly increased the durability of Alolan as it is amplified by the fact that its Snow Warning ability automatically lets it set up the snow on the switch-in. This also allows it to set up Aurora Veil, which reduces the damage to my entire team for 5 turns, or 8 if I decide to use the held item like Clay. My second pick was my favorite Pokemon of all time, and it's a Pokemon I have never gotten to use in Draft League before, which is the Psychic Pokemon, Mew. Mew is a potent setup sweeper that can learn any teachable move in the game. It is an incredibly diverse and unpredictable threat, which makes it invaluable in draft. Now, the one downside to Mew is that it often has to set up to be effective, which is why it pairs so nicely with the Alolan Ninetales, as the extra bulk Mew would get from the Aurora Veil will allow it to set up safely and just win games on its own. Mew has a base stat total of 100 across the entire board, which makes EV spreads just as hard to predict for my opponent as the move pool. I now had 2 Pokemon that could fit on any type of team, but for me, it ain't enough. In Generation 8, I had great success using the legendary VGC starter Pokemon Incineroar, so this time I decided to draft his legendary VGC starter Pokemon cousin, Rillaboom. Rillaboom is a Pokemon that sets grassy terrain, which powers up its grass-type attacks and weakens spread ground moves like Earthquake. This enables the move Grassy Glide also to gain priority, allowing Rillaboom to strike his opponents first with a stab grass-type attack. Even though Grassy Glide was nerfed in this generation, it actually works out to my advantage because Rillaboom was a steal at only 14 points, similar to Alolan Ninetales. With all the versatile support Pokemon on my team, I knew I would be susceptible to people trying to counter my setup and my support. So with my next pick, I decided to draft Hisuian Zoroark. With strong special and physical attack, Zoroark allows me to easily break through my opponent's team. And with the illusion ability, I can disguise myself as other Pokemon such as Mew and get the necessary chip or a KO needed for that Pokemon to win the game. For my 5th pick, I drafted my first Terra Captain, Colossal. Terra Captains are a lower tiered Pokemon that we can use to Terra into 1 stab type and 2 additional types that we have designated for the season. Colossal is a rock and fire type Pokemon that has always been held back by its typing. It has good stats and great abilities in Flame Body, Flash Fire, and Steam Engine, and even moves like Scald, Spikes, Stealth Rocks, and Rapid Spin. It becomes a reliable Pokemon that can come every week with the ability to Terra, and it pairs nicely with the grassy terrain from Rillaboom. The Terra types I decided to go with were Fire to keep a strong Fire-Water Grass core, Fairy to abuse Flame Body versus any physical attackers, and Ghost to block Brick Break or Rapid Spin for my opponents trying to remove Colossal's hazards or Ninetales' Veil. Now that we have the Steam Engine on the team, my next pick is Revavroom. I decided to draft Revavroom to round out my engine core with Colossal. Both of these Pokemon pair nicely with Rillaboom's grassy terrain, and Revavroom gave me a strong Steel type as well as a grounded Poison type with the ability to beat other Steels and Poisons with high horsepower and set Toxic Spikes. Its ability Filter also allows it to tank hits exceptionally well despite not being a Terra Captain. Up next, we have Paldean Tauros Aqua. It's a water fighting type that I chose to round out my Fire-Water Grass core. Paldean Tauros Aqua gets access to great moves like Raging Bull to remove screens from my opponent, Aqua Jet for priority, and strong stabs like Wave Crash and Close Combat. It also gets Trailblaze for sweeping, as well as the ability Intimidate for more bulky defensive sets. In round 8, I took Gligar for only 6 points. Even with grassy terrain, my team was looking a little too weak to ground-type attacks, and a bulky flying type like Gligar gave me another answer to ground-type Pokemon with the addition of the move Crab Hammer that's been added to its move pool. It also learned the moves Spikes and Toxic Spikes this generation, which gives me another hazard setting option outside of Mew and Colossal. Gligar's ground and flying type is amazing defensively, and its bulk behind Aurora Veil paired with the Eviolite is insane. It allows it to even live moves like Choice Banded, Adamant, Mamoswine's Icicle Crash, as well as KO it in return by using Counter. My team was strong, but I lacked a Pokemon with reliable recovery, and just grassy terrain wasn't going to cut it. So with my 9th pick, I took my second Terra Captain, Bellibolt. Now the reason I chose Bellibolt is because I think it's funny. Bellibolt hits surprisingly hard with its Electromorphosis ability, which doubles the power of its next electric type attack after getting hit. It gets reliable recovery and slack off, and it has a way to hit ground types with the move Muddy Water, as well as Toxic to break opposing walls. And I do love breaking down walls. The Terra types that I chose were Electric, Fairy, and Flying. Electric was forced, but Fairy and Flying gave me a Pokemon similar to Colossal that punished physical attackers with the ability Static. Looking at my team from here, there's one element that was missing, and that was a speedy Weather Sweeper to pair with my Alotails. So for just 3 points, I managed to get an absolute steal with my third Terra Captain, Beartic. Beartic is a Pokemon with 50 base speed, but it gets doubled in the snow. This means that I'm able to outspeed Pokemon like Jolly Dragapult and wreak havoc on teams with its Ice Stab combined with its base 130 attack stat. I decided to make Beartic Terra Electric and Ground, in addition to Ice, to give it physical Bolt Beam coverage, which hits almost every Pokemon for neutral or super effective damage, and a reliable ground type move to break through certain matchups. My second to last pick needed to be a special wall while being a threatening Pokemon in the base 70 speed tier to fill some of the speed gaps. Noctowl was my choice for 4 points as a potential special wall with its base 100 HP and 96 special defense. It's a potential special breaker with the ability Tinted Lens combined with Nasty Plot, Air Slash, Hyper Voice, Roost, and even Moonblast. And for my very last pick, I still had 17 points, which is more than I had spent on any Pokemon up to this point, and more points than anybody else had left, so I knew I was guaranteed to get my pick without being sniped. I decided to finish my draft with a new Pokemon that has 2 of the most important typings in draft, which is Dark and Dragon. So for the final pick, Mr. Irrelevant, I picked the Paradox Pokemon Roaring Moon. Roaring Moon got a huge buff in the DLC, gaining access to the moves Knockoff and Scale Shot. Roaring Moon is a setup sweeper that pairs nicely with the Veil from Alola Ninetales, and it can run Roost with the Grassy Seed along with Rillaboom's Grassy Terrain. This gives my opponents another fear outside of Mew sweeping them. Now before we get into the nicknames, this video is going up on October 1st, which is my birthday. So it would be pretty hype if you would please subscribe for my birthday, because only 3% of my viewers are actually subscribed, so thank you! And for nicknames, you know I always come with that heat, so here's the lineup for this season. Alola Ninetales is going to be nicknamed Furry Bait. Mew is going to be named Ancient. We love Ancient Mew around here. Now Rillaboom is going to be Gorilla Grip, because you know she got that grip. Hisuian Zoroark is going to be called a Catfish because she always in disguise. Colossal will be shiny and will be named Colonoscopy. Revavroom will also be shiny and will be named Stick Shift. Paldean Tauros Aqua is going to be named 4 Passerian after one of my Kick subscribers. So make sure to check me out on Kick if you haven't already, link in the description. Gligar will of course also be shiny. We're going to name that boy Rupert. Bellibolt will be Rule 34, and I'm sure you already know why. Beartic is going to be named Baxcalibur, since Beartic is the superior Veil Sweeper. Noctowl obviously going to be named Hooters, and Roaring Moon will don the name Moaning Moon. Overall, I really like my new team for the DLC Draft League. Please let me know in the comment section below if you like it as well. Let me know your favorite teammate, and make sure to leave a like. Thank you. Have a good day.